It's the week ending Saturday the 27th of April, and this is The Week Unwrapped. In the past 7 days, we've seen terror attacks in Sri Lanka killing hundreds, climate activist Greta Thunberg addressing the British Parliament, and Avengers Endgame hitting the big screen. But we're here to bring you some stories that passed under the radar this week. Big news, not making headlines right now, but with repercussions for all our lives. I'm Olly Mann. Let's unwrap the week. And joining me today from the week's digital team are Hollie, Clemence, Kari, Wilkins, and Jamie Timson. And starting the show this week is Kari. What do you think this week should be remembered for?
This is the week we asked, why are cigarette companies trying to kill smoking?
People should never start, but if they smoke and they don't quit, then they should switch. And that's what the campaign is doing, is part of the whole transformation effort. If we are hypocritical, we have not invested $6 billion in developing these products, scientifically assessing them, putting them on the market, commercializing them, and we would have not been spending 60% of our entire marketing and sales budgets behind these products when they represent last year 6% of our sales. So if you call this hypocritical, I think it's an exaggeration of incommensurate dimension.
That was Andrei Kalantzopoulos, the CEO of tobacco giant Philip Morris, speaking to CNBC on Tuesday. Kari, he sounded very agitated. What's been happening this week?
So this week, Philip Morris International, which makes 6 of the world's top 15 cigarette brands, including Marlboro, so major player in the tobacco world, launched a life insurance company in the UK which offers discounted plans to former smokers. And this has created a lot of scepticism, understandably.
What's the thinking?
The thinking is basically the company are going to offer discounts of 2.5% to people who switch to e-cigarettes, namely the company's own e-cigarettes, 25% for switching to PMI's heated tobacco product, which is called IQOS, for at least 3 months, and then 50% if you quit smoking for good for at least a year.
I see. So this isn't just about the world's largest tobacco manufacturer embracing the anti-smoking movement.
It's about marketing.
Yeah, marketing their own, I was about to say anti-smoking product, but it's not really anti-smoking, is it? Because they've still got tobacco in. They're just not traditional cigarettes.
Well, this is what a lot of critics are saying. It's essentially just a Trojan horse, if you like, to undermine tobacco control regulations and rehabilitate the company's image. So PMI, they're still making huge profits. They made about $30 billion last year, but cigarette sales are falling. So they realise they need to diversify, essentially. It's kind of like tobacco's version of the big oil companies investing in electric cars. So it's finding a new way to turn profits out of tobacco, but as critics point out, you're still trying to get people hooked on nicotine.
But I mean, can you blame them for that strategy? After all, you don't go to work for Philip Morris if you want to be part of an ethical business. You go to work there because they make lots of money. They've realised there's this issue, and at least they are diversifying in a way that's better for their consumers.
I agree. I think this is actually a good news story overall, because these products hopefully will help more people quit.
Hollie, I'm not sure agrees with you. Go for it.
I think the problem is they're saying one thing to a set of people and another to other countries. Like, we've obviously cut down advertising in the UK, so they're marketing it here. But in other countries, they're still aggressively marketing their cigarettes. They're still making 800 billion cigarettes a year. They're still fighting against tobacco taxes in other countries and not really helping with trying to reduce young people smoking. There's still so many things they could be doing.
I totally agree. And I do think this is all about, no big shock, I think this is all about profits for them. But it's basically their response. The UK is quite in major contrast, for example, to the US. The UK Public Health Agency has embraced e-cigarettes as a less harmful alternative. In fact, last year, PMI invested £2 million in a UK anti-smoking campaign as part of an initiative to support what they call better alternatives, such as their own e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products. By contrast, US authorities seriously considering regulation of cigarette replacement products amid concern about the soaring use among teenagers, which is I think a lot of the criticism is that, yes, okay, this is helping people quit, but you're basically hooking a new generation of smokers who wouldn't necessarily have tried cigarette smoking, but because these vaping things all taste very good and smell very good, are more likely to become addicted to nicotine that way.
Yeah, the overarching strategy, Jamie, seems to be make vaping less weird, make make it less of a novelty. We all remember when we first saw e-cigarettes and there was a curiosity factor, wasn't there? Oh, show me how you can smoke that indoors. Oh, that's not real smoke. The idea is now just to make it seem like such an acceptable thing that it's incentivised, it's on every high street, and it's not subject to the same regulations as traditional cigarettes.
I mean, who hasn't looked at a USB stick and thought, God, I'd love to smoke that? I mean, there's lots of things. I think, why have they not just diversified and got into like building like coffins and stuff like that? That's another way to make some money out of what their business model is.
Well, if the premiums, don't encourage people to quit, maybe that will be the next step.
Maybe that'll be the next step. I think it actually links into a couple of things that we've talked about on the podcast before, which I think is interesting and worthwhile people going back and listening to. One is the Juul thing.
There's laughter in the room as you suggest people should listen to our back catalogue. Yeah. I think I heartily agree with you. Created a format here that is maybe not evergreen, but it has mid-term use, doesn't
Timeless.
It? Yes. You can certainly go back a year. Anyway, carry on.
One is the kind of rise of juuling, which is spelt like jewel, as in emerald or ruby, which are these range of vapes that has become very popular with 16 to 18-year-olds in American high schools. And then also a link back to one of the very early episodes that we did, which was about how health insurance companies are incentivizing over to use kind of premium policies. So basically trying to give discounts for different things in order to get people to act more healthily. And within that idea, within that scale, actually, this isn't that new an idea. They are looking for ways to give people discounts on things that, as the insurance becomes much more readily available and pushed in the UK, we are going to be looking for ways to incentivise and to get discounts from it.
There's also just a fundamental weirdness, it seems to me, Kari, of Philip Morris being my life insurance provider, regardless of whether I'm a smoker or not.
Sounds like a bad joke, doesn't it?
I mean, I know, Jamie sort of hinted at it there by talking about coffins, but I know that the high street has become a place where people might bank with Marks and Spencer, for example, or they might get their pet insurance from John Lewis, but getting your life insurance from a tobacco company, it's just a bizarre idea. It is, but
that's one of the big challenges facing PMI that with the launch of this company, which is called Reviti. It's about gaining trust, and this, they hope, will, revitalise the whole image. But basically, it's a win-win for them, isn't it? Because if people buy their products as a result of this, then great. If they don't, presumably they'll push up the premium, so even if more smokers die, it's a win-win for them. So
there's a funny line on their website that I was just having a look, checking out what my quote would be.
I always head over to Philip Morris International for a good laugh.
Just on their specific insurance site as well, and it says, we offer smokers great rates on life insurance because we want to inspire everyone to quit tobacco, but they're offering smokers great rates on life insurance. It's almost like they're appealing to people to carry on smoking and that they'll offer better rates than other main insurers that won't.
And some critics are saying that this could possibly offering discounts for switching to its products, its IQOS products, whatever, could actually push more people to try it.
Just to underline what Holly was saying earlier is that, I think that we in the West sometimes look at our action towards smoking and the way that we kind of deal with the issue at the moment as something that applies worldwide, and it just doesn't.
Yeah.
And Philip Morris as a company is still mainly interested in the way that it can get, it advertises cigarette flavours to kids in India or in the Philippines or in places like where smoking is not only a norm but highly common. And it's hypocritical and a bit of an empty promise really from them, I think.
I mean, I suppose that seems underlined by the fact that if they really, it seems to me, were intent on diversifying their business, they're one of the world's biggest companies. They could just become a property company. They could pivot completely, couldn't they? They could do what Whitbread did and buy Costa. They don't have to make cigarettes at all.
And also what they're saying is, these are tools to help people quit smoking. Well, if that's the case, then surely this is a very short-term business plan, because once everyone quits standard cigarettes and then uses these products, well, in a couple of decades, presumably by that rationale, there'd be no demand for them either. But it seems that, as a lot of critics of vaping or whatever say, the jury's still out in terms of the long-term health effects, but some argue vaping can damage lungs, that it encourages, obviously, nicotine addiction, and that it may be a gateway to tobacco smoking, so that people who wouldn't have taken up any form of nicotine addiction because they wouldn't have smoked because it's become so difficult, certainly in this country, will instead try vaping and become hooked on something that they would have shunned.
Yeah, one of the interesting sort of facets to that, which I've seen written about before, is the fact that, for example, there are regulations in music videos that you can't show pop stars smoking cigarettes for obvious reasons, but you can show them vaping. And we all know that teenagers are really influenced by the people that they like and what they're doing in the videos. And vaping actually does look a bit like you've got a fag in your mouth, doesn't it? It doesn't really look that different. You are glamorising the idea of inhaling something.
Exactly, but we still, the US last year, PMI actually applied to bring its IQOS tobacco heating device to the US market, but the FDA said that the firm hadn't proven that it was a safer alternative to cigarettes. Now, most scientists are agreed that it is, but it's not entirely risk-free, and I think that's the point.
Underlining that, like Public Health England as well, because they've put a lot of money into an advertising programme. If you are a smoker, I don't think you should look at it and be like, well, vaping's not any different, so, I might as well continue smoking. Like, there is clear evidence that
definitely.
Vaping is better for you than smoking, whether or not taking up vaping as a non-smoker.
Bad for you.
Holly, what can Philip Morris learn from the playbook of the oil companies, your ExxonMobils and your BPs?
I think, like Kari was saying, maybe it's time for them to just diversify into something else, whether that be life insurance as their next way forward to earn money. They can see that smoking isn't going to be the way forward. Perhaps in the UK, we're already making that move. There's fewer smokers, lots of legislation. So they're probably just scouting around to see what else that they can do and how they can make money.
But I actually don't think they can rehabilitate their reputation, if I'm honest. I don't think that BP...
But BP kind of... Oh, you think about that flowery logo they've got?
Yeah.
And all the stuff about the green oil and the Wild Bean Cafe.
If they were going to work for BP, in my head I would still think of it as... an
ethically compromised
as compromising their ethics. And I think that
But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, isn't it the case that the public have slightly altered their perception of that brand based on their marketing? And that's all Philip Morris are trying to do.
I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to find out. I think people still think of BP as the big oil spill that happened with the tar all over the flamingos.
Right. Holly, you're up next after this. OK, Holly, your turn. What do you think this week will be remembered for?
Are 21st century child stars really better off behind closed doors?
You know what this means, girls?
No.
That means you can't shop in the little girls section anymore.
I want to shop in the little girls section. I don't want to go. I want to be size 15. I don't want to go another size.
Come here.
That was the McClure Twins family YouTube channel with a video entitled I Don't Want to Grow Up. What's the story, Holly?
So this week, former child actors, traditional child actors and legal experts have been speaking out about the risk of exploitation for children who have found fame on YouTube and Instagram.
Oh, I thought this was a Guardian long read, wasn't it?
Yes,
this
it was a
fascinating.
Really interesting story in The Guardian, obviously not specific to these two children in the clip, but there's been other more extreme examples of children facing worse exploitation.
And the theory behind it was essentially, if you're a child performer on YouTube, that's kind of what they're calling these young influencers who unbox presents for money, then you should be subject to the same child labour laws they have in place for the state of California and child actors.
Yeah, as Hollywood actors. And I was looking into the UK because it's quite US focused, that article. But the UK have got very specific laws for children. If you're under 13, they're the only areas that you can really work in, which is TV, modelling, theatre. But there's very strict rules. You've got to apply for a licence from your local authority and then you can only work so many hours. But that isn't happening for YouTube stars. Parents can apply to it, but it's completely up to the parent. And whether that's happening, it doesn't sound like it's a very popular avenue.
I mean, it's intellectually very interesting, all of this, Jamie, but it's not the same, is it? It's not the same making videos at home in your bedroom of you messing about as it is, performing in Matilda in the West End.
No, I think that there are obviously some key differences. I think probably being involved in these situations, though, are quite similar. If you look at the amount of the amount of people that are watching these videos in comparison to the number of people that are now watching TV, like some of these kids that are involved are being seen by millions of people around the world in the same way that child stars, Macaulay Culkin or someone like that had that same exposure.
But there's two issues there, isn't there? There's what they're getting paid for it, like whether the money from it should go into a trust fund for them.
Yeah.
But then the second issue of their time and child labour laws. I mean, like I say, I'll make the same point again. Opening a gift on a camcorder is not the same as doing a 180-day shoot on Home Alone 2.
If they're getting paid for it, it's work. if you are
That's the
receiving
theory,
money...
but it isn't the same. Kari, back me up. It isn't the same. As you've got kids, it's not the same.
Well, you read interviews with some of the parents of these kids, and they're saying, "Oh no, it's it's all fun, but they have to do it if we're being paid for it." There's actually a quote from one mother saying that on those days we just get the lollipops out. It's like, that's work. Sorry, but it is. The parents of these twins that we heard, they quit their jobs last year to manage their children's careers full time, and yet they're saying that they're not careers. It's fun. But they're earning millions and millions of dollars. The highest paid YouTube star last year was a 7-year-old boy called Ryan. He earned $22 million. That's a job.
And I think that there's a question about, which actually probably exists before, was that there was an interesting podcast with Anna Klumsky, who was My Girl with Macaulay Culkin.
Now she's in Veep.
And now she's in Veep.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how she describes it as trauma. Becoming a child star was a case of trauma. And people don't really understand it when they think that, they earned loads of money and they became a big... But she says, it's the same as going through a horrific accident or something. The effect that it has on your life is trauma. And that makes you think... And reading this article did also make me think that while I agree with the idea that it should be more regulated, I also think that there needs to be far more education of parents, because at the end of the day, if you are a parent, you are in charge of your child. You are the one that is meant to be looking after the child. And if you are choosing to put that child in a situation like this, then that is a problem with your parenting.
Yeah, and as you say, okay, you can argue, well, it's not work to unwrap presents, but to live that lifestyle is work. You ask any celebrity, they're in the spotlight working, if you like, 24 hours a day. If you're being watched because of your status, you're working.
And actually, Holly, I suppose the difference with YouTube and Instagram is it almost literally is 24 hours a day. Other people might film you when you're out shopping or you've gone to a theme park or whatever. It doesn't stop when you stop making the film.
Yeah, and I think the Department of Education here obviously put the onus on the parents to take responsibility, but there's been some really horrible cases in America. There's people that are abusing their children and forcing them into doing the videos. I know that's an extreme case, but it just goes to show you how it should be regulated. There's a man that's had 2 of his children the custody taken away from him because he was filming so-called pranks on YouTube, big well-known cases now. But it's obviously there is a reason why the law needs to be in place. It's
that thing of kids are far more social media literate now than adults. And, there was that example, kind of joke example of Gwyneth Paltrow's child being I've told you can't put pictures up of me without my consent, when she was 16 or whatever. And that is such an example of the fact that kids are much more aware of online presence, are much more aware of the things that they're putting up than even, we were. And so that then means that if you are taking away that agency at the age of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, there needs to be someone regulating it.
Well, I suppose in a lot of these areas, the big internet companies, the FANG companies, they tend to say self-regulation is the answer. That might not be right, but that's what they say. Are they doing anything about this?
Well, I guess if you complained about it, they probably would have to look into it. But I guess the problem as well, Ofcom isn't in charge of YouTube. It doesn't cover it, even though it's one of the places that most people now get their viewing their videos, TV from. So it seems madness that there's not kind of a regulator specific to YouTube.
But YouTube themselves could do something, couldn't they?
Well, campaigners have actually said they want YouTube to institute policies as a form of employer, because effectively that's what they are, that institute policies requiring that children who feature in monetized videos are entitled to a share of the revenues. And YouTube and Instagram have both said they're working with experts about policies related to children, but that's all they've said.
Well, there's also, it seems to me, an onus you could put on the sponsors, on the advertisers. Of course, these parents aren't necessarily going to be educated in business. They're not necessarily going to have a lawyer. But if you're Twix or, Rice Krispies or whoever, and you're sponsoring a child on YouTube, you should make damn sure that your contract says when they're filming this video, it's only for 2 hours a day or whatever it is that needs to be there.
I think there's that horrible, the agencies that the parents sign up with that are out there to market kidfluencers. Some of them obviously are there and put in good regulations and all of those things, but there are a lot of people out there, much like acting, I think, who tell parents, we can make you serious money, your kid's brilliant, we're going to make them a star. It's that world that I think really needs to be looked into, because that's horrible.
But also in terms of the revenue that's earned from this, it's all muddied by the fact that YouTube and Instagram, they ban children under 13 from having accounts. So who actually owns this product? How can you claim that the children have a right to this money if they don't have ownership of the product itself? It makes it very difficult legally.
It's tricky as well because some of the parents say, oh, the children really are for it, it's fine. But the things that I used to dread, the things you wear when you're a child, like it was fine at the time, but I would hate, I'm so glad YouTube wasn't really around when I was a child. So how far does a child know that they want to do something until they look back and realise how embarrassing it is?
Exactly. It's so much more dangerous in a way than becoming a child film star or whatever. You've got professionals there sort of choosing what is going to be shown. Just someone sticking a camera in your face at home when you're 5, you're probably going to do something that you're going to regret in the future. There was a bill in California last year that actually got passed to protect kids in social media advertising, but it got so watered down because what constitutes payment.
Well, and, California as an example, as the exemplar for, great unionised child labour laws doesn't seem to me to be a great success story. I mean, Jamie mentioned Anna Chomsky, but I mean, you can mention pretty much any former child star, whether it's, Britney Spears or Mara Wilson or whoever, and they'll tell you they had a crap time.
They were probably before some of those laws came out. I think that's probably what the laws were for.
But is it 1999? Yeah, it really got tightened up.
But do the laws really benefit the child? I mean, of course, that some. I'm not saying there aren't advantages, but really they benefit all the middlemen, don't they? The agents, the lawyers. There's a whole industry built around it. Is that necessary to impose that on someone when they're making videos of their kids?
I can't imagine. I just absolutely can't imagine putting my child in that situation. I just can't. Even if someone said they wanted, they loved acting and they wanted to be, I would so try and push them away from that world.
Okay, but it can start very innocently, can't it? I mean, Jamie's saying that. Holly, you've become a parent recently. It wouldn't start necessarily in a cynical way, but it would be like, my kid's doing a funny dance and I filmed it on my phone anyway, and it's funny and people like it, so I'll share it.
I personally wouldn't, but I wouldn't judge someone that did do it. I can see what Jamie's saying, though, because you can see when it suddenly goes crazy and they've quit their jobs to watch their children at home eat. And, like, some of them are really, like, inappropriate. They put chocolate in nappies and, like, put it in their child's faces and stuff. It's stuff that you wouldn't want to see in real life, let alone on a video, and laugh about it.
And if you don't pull the plug when the money's starting to come in, you do have that option. And some people perhaps are sort of thinking it's fun, I'll put the money aside for the children, but you can see how that gets abused, whereas some parents are going to go, well, this is a nice little earner.
Okay, well, our very own child star, Jamie, is up next. It's your turn after this. And so finally this week, it is Jamie. What do you think this week will be remembered for?
This was the week we realised we may soon be saying, yes, we have no bananas.
And I saw the devastation by myself. So I don't want that to happen in Colombia or in other countries in Latin America. For example, I went to Philippines and I saw these farms totally destroyed. So I really want to find a solution. I thought about that. I thought that bananas is, of course, one of the most important crops, not only in Colombia, but in all Latin America. So I have to do something to contribute, at least, to solve the problem.
That was Dr. Fernando Garcia Bacidas, also known as the Banana Man, speaking on BBC Radio 4's food programme on Monday. You can get the podcast if you'd like to hear more. But right now, Jamie, we're going to discuss what has been happening to the banana.
I don't know how much you know about bananas.
I think I'll keep it that way.
But when I was doing the research for this, I realised there's actually far more to know about bananas than you initially think. It is, in fact, the cheapest fruit in the UK, full stop. And we, as the UK, import the highest percentage per person of any country in the world, banana-wise.
So it is the world's favourite fruit, isn't it?
It is basically the world's favourite fruit.
But you're saying we in the UK love it more per person than anywhere else in the world?
Import it. So not consume, but import it.
Yeah, but we import it to consume it.
Yes, yeah. But other places just
So we
grow
love it more?
Yeah. We love it more than anywhere else.
I guess unless the banana's native and then you're munching it.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is that actually the biggest two producers of bananas are China and India.
Okay.
Because they just eat it themselves.
Okay, but these are not important statistics from the week's news. Why are we talking about this?
This week, basically, scientists have found a way to stop all of the bananas being eradicated from the planet, which you would think, even if you're not a big banana fan, is a good thing. So let me go back and tell you about the banana.
Okay.
At the moment, the problem is that there is a strain of disease, a kind of blight on the banana crop called TR4, Tropical Race 4.
I mean, given Jamie's credentials on this programme, can I just look to one of you ladies to back this up? Have you read around this subject as well? Yes? Yes. Okay, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
But the world's bananas are under threat of eradication. That's the thing.
The
Okay.
$44 billion banana industry.
Fine. Okay, Jamie, continue.
There you go. TR4 has been found in Taiwan, and it affects the Cavendish species of banana. Now, the Cavendish species of banana is probably the only banana that anyone listening to this podcast will be aware of.
Really?
Yellow, black at the end.
Well, we know what a banana looks like. Are you saying that all the bananas we have in the supermarket are Cavendish bananas?
99% of all bananas that are exported in the world are Cavendish bananas, but only 50% of the world's bananas that are consumed are Cavendish.
Okay, I'm just going to stop you there then. So this threat to bananas, you said it could eradicate all bananas, not just the Cavendish. So why are we talking about the Cavendish?
All bananas as in within your realm of
Okay,
consciousness.
no. But I'm going to stick on this point. Jamie said all bananas are under threat of eradication. What he's now clarifying is that I'm not saying it's not serious. There's a potential risk to the most popular species of banana. Doesn't that just mean we could eat some other bananas?
The beauty of the Cavendish banana is that it has only tiny seeds, so you can eat them, whereas most wild bananas contain large hard seeds, so us spoilt Western consumers wouldn't want to eat it.
But they're popular elsewhere.
Perhaps in developing nations where they don't necessarily have the choice to be so picky about it.
It's also travel. The Cavendish banana is, the design of the banana is most effective for long travel.
I feel at this point, Holly, you're going to say something about a stately home in England.
Yes,
Go
it
on.
became popular because another type of banana, the Gros Michel,
Yeah, Big Mike.
called Big Mike. So the Gros Michel was nearly eradicated in the 1950s from another Panama strain.
And up until then, that was the most
That was
widely
the most
eaten
popular.
banana.
And then they realised the Cavendish was actually immune to that, so that's why it became the most popular, because they thought that that would be the surviving banana. But now,
What's that got to do with English stately home?
because that banana came from Chatsworth House in the UK.
Oh God, this is frying my brain. So the banana we all eat now,
Is the Cavendish.
is the one came from Chatsworth House.
Yes.
Okay.
Not originally. That's just where it was
Sure.
taken.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of banana facts going on here. Holly, are you as concerned as Jamie that this story is? Well, I suppose you're saying it's good news if we found a way of defeating this strain.
Hopefully, except it involves genetic modification, which Europe's obviously not a big fan of.
Okay. Talk me through what it actually means.
So they would change part of the gene that is not immune to the Panama disease.
I think this whole story, it really highlights the danger of monocrops, essentially, because the Gros Michel, this was a naturally developed, if you like, naturally grown banana. Everyone ate it, apparently far tastier than the version we're eating now. Whereas the Cavendish, they're all clones of one another. They've been created from cuttings, propagated from cuttings. That's what makes it so vulnerable to this disease, because once it infects one, it can get them all.
It has big parallels with the Irish potato famine. So it's the same problem, that basically the potato in Ireland was a monoculture, and when it got a blight, people died because there was no other way to improve on the potato or change the crop itself. The thing about genetically modifying it is it's using CRISPR technology, which is the same technology that we have talked about on this podcast before. I'm all about the callbacks today. But it's the same one that we've talked about before in terms of human genes. And they use CRISPR technology to adapt the fruit.
But we know what the solution might be, genetically modified alternatives, as you just suggested, Holly. So why are the farmers in Africa reluctant to embrace that?
Europe is not a big fan of genetically modified food. Would they make an exception for the banana? Maybe that would be this change for Europe's regulations. If it was such an important fruit as the banana, maybe they would. People have compared it to pasteurised milk, how people reacted to milk used to not be pasteurised, and people were shocked when it was and wouldn't eat it and said it wouldn't have the same nutrient value. But obviously people drink that now, so maybe that's in years to come we will accept a GM banana.
Do you think that is what's going to happen, Kari?
I think it's possible, yeah, either through gene editing or gene modification, they'll come up with a new strain. But I think what a lot of people, what farmers said during the 1950s crisis, and what they're saying again, is that this lack of diversity is making the industry vulnerable. And that's what needs to be addressed. This would be a band-aid, if you like, and then this could happen again in a few decades if another strain of disease comes through that can attack the new version of the banana.
Well, I wonder, Jamie, whether actually consumers particularly want every banana to be exactly the same. It's quite nice to see a diversity of bananas, isn't it, when you go to a sort of international food hall or something?
This is it. I think that actually probably what we need to realise is that the banana shouldn't be the cheapest fruit on offer, and that actually we should be accepting of bananas that are different shapes and sizes, you know, one love, one race. And in that sense, you should be able to go into a shop and see a banana that maybe look very different from the normal Cavendish banana and be okay with that as a prospect. Just as an example, the reason why...
I just love the idea that someone walks into Sainsbury's. It's like, that's a small banana. I am not okay with that.
It's not even just smaller bananas. It's like they look weirdly different. Like,
do they?
Really, really different. Some other different types of bananas look very, very different, but that doesn't make them weird. That makes it okay.
How do they look?
So some of them are very short and stubby and pink and fat. And then other ones are bigger and longer and brown. Outside of the UK, so nearly 9/10 of the world's bananas are eaten in poor countries, where at least 400 million people rely on them for 15 to 27% of their daily calories. So what Kari's saying about them being a kind of monocrop or monoculture is important, because it means that if there is another blight on a strain that exists for someone that's getting 30% of their daily calories from them, you know, for us they're just a fun breakfast thing that you eat before you go and do some exercise. But for a lot of people in the world, they are so much more than that. And so we need to have diversity of crops in order to save people's lives.
And healthier soil systems, better biological pest and disease controls. There's so many different approaches that could be taken rather than just keep modifying.
And I should say, Hollie was the one who was giggling whilst Jamie was describing the diversity of different bananas. Care to share why with the class?
No, we're just joking.
Right, I'm calling a halt to proceedings there. You would be bananas to miss out on our back catalogue. You can discover it all when you subscribe to The Week Unwrapped on your podcast app of choice. But in the meantime, that is it for this edition. My thanks to Holly Clemence, Jamie Timson and Kari Wilkins. And don't forget, you can receive 6 issues of The Week magazine for £1 and a free Moleskine notebook branded with The Week when you go to theweek.co.uk/offer and enter the promo code podcast. I've been Olly Mann. Our music is by Tom Morby, the producers Matt Hill and Chika Ayres at Rethink Audio. Until we meet again to unwrap next week, bye-bye.